Time now 6:17. Senator Kyrsten Sinema is in Arizona this week, meeting with community leaders and discussing implementation of the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Law, a $1.2 trillion bipartisan deal she helped to successfully lead to the president's desk. The senator visited Arizona's family for a rare sit-down interview earlier in the week, and we started off talking about the legislation that has not yet passed, the Freedom to Vote John R. Lewis Act. This week would have marked John Lewis's 82nd birthday, as you well know. And this has become a real flashpoint issue for so many Americans. I know that you from Washington are watching closely what's going on at the Arizona state legislature. Nearly 100 bills, many of them to change the electoral process based upon still false assumptions over the 2020 election. So now more than ever, these protections are needed, the Freedom to Vote Act as well. Now things appear to be stalled. So what can you explain to the voters who feel that this is so critically important?
Well, first, I would agree. In Arizona, we have a long history of ensuring that people have access to the ballot in a way that's easiest and most comfortable for them. A lot of folks don't realize that Arizona has one of the best vote-by-mail systems in the country, and we want to protect that so that folks can vote at any time from their home in their pajamas, which allows them the time to, really study the ballot and decide who they want to vote for and what issues they care about most. So folks know that I was a co-sponsor of both of the pieces of voting rights legislation in Congress. We haven't yet been able to get the 60 votes that we need in the Senate to move it forward. But I'm proud to say, and I know this will come as no surprise to folks here at home, that I'm part of a small bipartisan group that's working together right now to protect our election integrity. And I feel very confident that we're going to move forward with a bipartisan piece of legislation this year that will ensure that we're protecting our elections moving forward. The other thing I want to note is you mentioned the Arizona legislature. People remember I used to serve in the legislature. And I have to say that I've been watching what's happening, and Speaker Bowers has done a very good job of ensuring that pieces of legislation that reflect a narrative that isn't true, he's getting that legislation out of the way. It's not moving forward in the process, and that's important because that shows a bipartisan commitment to the integrity of the clean elections that we have here in Arizona. So I tell voters in Arizona, just stay tuned, watch over the coming months. You'll see me and a handful of others really, I think, move forward on our bipartisan process, and I believe we will be able to pass legislation that protects the integrity of elections, not only in Arizona, but all around the country.
Unable to reach that 60-vote threshold, the Freedom to Vote Act was defeated in the U.S. Senate. Senator Sinema says she remains opposed to altering filibuster rules. Coming up at the 7 o'clock hour, we hear from the senator about the dollars and improvements headed directly to Arizona through that infrastructure funding. Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema has always focused on reaching across the aisle as a moderate, but in today's intensely polarized political sphere of 2022, her votes and approach have been characterized by many Democrats as a betrayal to their agenda. Still, the senator insists bipartisanship still works and points to the $1.2 trillion infrastructure package as proof of it.
Just last year, I authored and led an effort to pass the infrastructure bill. It's now in law, and we're working to implement it. That's the greatest investment in infrastructure and jobs in over 2 generations, and it happened in an extremely bipartisan way. So when people say to me, "Oh, Kyrsten, the bipartisan shtick doesn't work anymore," I say, well, actually, the proof is in the pudding. It does work, and it delivers lasting results that we're feeling the effects of every single day. We've made the largest investment in broadband in our country's history, and we've included money that gets to the hardest to reach places. So throughout all tribal communities in Arizona, deep into our rural areas, and in areas that are urban, but it's been financially difficult, like in South Phoenix or out in Tolleson or Guadalupe. So we're ensuring that we're spreading it to all parts of the community, and we've included funding to help subsidize the cost for communities that historically have not been able to afford it. Now, this was important before the pandemic, but one thing we learned when the pandemic hit was that kids could not get the education they needed. They couldn't visit with their families. They couldn't see their doctors because they didn't have reliable access to internet. Our law fixes that. Right now, we're facing this supply chain challenge, right? You can't rent a car, you can't buy a new car, you can't get the stuff you want in the grocery store because the shelves are empty. By investing money in our roads, our ports of entry, our highways, trains, we're able to actually address those supply chain shortages and make sure that people can get access to the goods when they need them.
Looking ahead to the 9 o'clock hour, we'll have more with Senator Sinema on inflation and her no vote to raise the minimum wage.
The cost of gas and the cost of groceries, empty shelves are all overwhelming Arizonans. And I want people to keep more of their own money in their pockets. And that means getting control of inflation.
Senator Kyrsten Sinema on a key priority, the current struggle to make ends meet as prices of everything rise, particularly housing as well. Currently, an Arizonan earning minimum wage needs to work 60 hours a week to pay for an apartment. So I asked the senator why she voted against raising the federal minimum wage.
The rules are pretty clear that you can't do a mandate when you're doing a budget bill. And there were some in my party who wanted to overrule the process. That's very dangerous, not just for the time being, but for the future. Maybe when another party gets control, so and they could change it.
The filibuster is the other F word in the room that we don't have to bleep out, but that people are going crazy talking about. So your stance on preserving the filibuster as is will stay as is.
Absolutely. The thing is that over time, parties change control. And when parties change control, there needs to be a backstop to protect the rights and privileges that Americans already have. And the filibuster does exactly that.
So that has obviously been a stance that has ostracized fellow Democrats and led to some efforts to primary her in 2024. But for now, she says she is working for struggling constituents and does have a plan to address the federal minimum wage.
I'm working on a minimum wage effort right now with Senator Mitt Romney of Utah. And we're interested in doing something different than the proposal that came up through a process last year that broke the rules. We're interested in creating an indexed process like Arizona's so that the minimum wage increases along with inflation over time. That allows people who are working hard to take care of their families and have enough money to actually survive when costs go up like they do right now during this time of inflation.
So throughout the week, Senator Sinema will be spending time at the border in Yuma, visiting tribal communities, talking with farmers and other local business leaders. No town halls are on her agenda.